Hello, my name is Anna Clyne and I'm a composer, and I'm delighted to be a part of Practice 30. As a composer, you can find inspiration in a myriad of places. You could be walking down the street, hear urban sounds like the traffic sounds, or you could be in nature hearing birdsong, or you could be at the piano and find a melody that you particularly love or a chord sequence. So what do you do with these ideas? When there's so many different options, let's start with the idea of a melody. So you could write a very simple melody, maybe just 5 notes, say. Then what can you do with that? You can stretch it out, make it longer, you can make it shorter, you could flip it upside down, so you could invert it, you could play it backwards, you could play it in different instruments or different octaves. There's so much you can do with just one idea. So what do you do when you find an idea? There's also different ways to notate it, or to put it in your sort of musical journal, as it were. You could write it down on a more standard way on a musical staff, or if you have, for an example, an iPhone, that could be a great way to document some ideas. You might have a melody in your head and you could record it, or you might hear something in your environment and record that too. So what I would encourage you to do is to create your own musical journal over 30 days. It can be a simple melody, it can be a sound, but find ways to document them. Get a notebook and sketch it out, or use your phone and make your own musical diary. So I'd love to share an example of a piece of mine which incorporates some of these things we've spoken about. It's a piece called Within Her Arms, and it's a piece for stringed instruments. And for that piece, my initial idea was a very short little cluster of 3 notes, A, G, F sharp, G. But from that little kernel of an idea, I developed it into a 12-minute piece. So it's an example of how you can take one little idea and expand it. So in the case of Within Her Arms, I had it go through the different instruments in the ensemble. I stretched it out, I inverted it, and I also used some electronic processing ideas. So you might have listened to a pop song, for example, on your headphones, and you hear stereo effects. Something's coming from the left, something's coming from the right, and that's something that you can play with in your own music. So if you have, for example, a string quartet, if the violin's over here and the cello's over here, they could have a conversation and your ear's going to hear it differently. So I love to play with that. One other example is if you hear, for example, a simple melody in a cathedral, you might know that sound of the reverberation, the echo that you hear. And I love using orchestration to evoke that sound. So if, for example, you have a violin playing A, G, F sharp, G, this very simple motif, you could have other instruments on the ensemble sustain those notes, so you get the kind of the feeling of reverberation of the echoey space. So these are some things you can do with your own music. So I encourage you to do your 30-day journal of musical sounds, and then after the 30 days, start to think about what you can do to create your own musical compositions. Thank you so much, and enjoy your musical journey.